Idea Factory has been bringing more of their games to the Switch, which I do appreciate. However, some of their more recent entries have not been optimized the best. I was pretty happy about Neptunia V2 having graphic options to make it smoother, though the same options didn't do as much for the more recent Death End Request. Them bringing over their Dragon Heavy entry made me wonder if it would be in the same boat as Death End. Now that I've played through it to completion, let us find out. Here is my review of Dragonstar Varnir for the Nintendo Switch. Dragonstar takes place in a world with humans, witches, and the dragons those witches create. Long ago, the witches went into hiding from being hunted down by humans for bringing the dragons and chaos into the world. You play as Zephy, a member of the human knights responsible for the hunting of witches. Zephy is mortally wounded by a dragon and saved by two of the people he is supposed to be hunting, mysteriously gaining the mark and power of a witch in the process. Abandoned by everyone he thought he could trust, he begins traveling with them, learning about the witches and the vast difference between tale and reality. The plot of Dragonstar is definitely one of the standouts among Idea Factory's non-Neptunia RPGs. There is a lot of good character development and emotional moments towards the finale that feel like they have real weight to them. You do have the occasional Idea Factory compile heart-esque little trope and fanservice-y scene, but it was overall a pretty solid story. The only thing I want to address here is the English dub. Idea Factory has always had what I call a partial dub, where the entire game has Japanese voice work done for all story scenes and English for the important ones. But Dragonstar has a noticeably low number of these dubbed scenes. Some chapters don't have any English VA work done at all, and a lot of the crucial scenes are just text. There's nothing wrong with reading or having Japanese voices on, but this is significantly less than what their games normally feature. When it comes to gameplay, this is a turn-based RPG. As you play through it, you will be traversing dungeons and fighting enemies in aerial turn-based combat. First of all, this functions as a deluxe edition. All DLC is built in and can be enabled from the title menu. Main progression here is done with navigating story scenes and going through dungeons to fight enemies and find the next boss to push the plot forward. There is no world map to speak of, just a menu with a list of dungeons that lets you go back to your base of operations as well. That base of operations houses some facilities, like a shop, quest board for side missions, elixir shop for optional battles and rewards, and the rooms for the party member witches. The latter is similar to what Mary Skelter had, with you going into the rooms to give them a gift. This will raise their affection level and unlock many cute little cutscenes between them and Zephy. This is also the key to unlocking their special little epilogue event during the ending. Outside of the main party members, you also have the Little Sister rooms. I cannot say a whole lot about this, but managing the health of the Little Sister characters in chapters 4 and onward is key to getting the true ending. But back to the RPG side. Dungeons and combat are a mix of returning features from previous Idea Factory games along with new ones. You wander 3D mazes collecting resources and running into enemies to start combat. Symbol attacks return, letting you hit an enemy for the first strike or annihilating them from the map screen if you're leveled high enough. The dungeons also present hazards and barriers that a certain character is needed to pass, like the magical walls for Zephy to dispel or gaps that Laponette can manifest a bridge for. Once you get into combat, we have a basic turn-based system with attack and magic skills that are used to exploit elemental weaknesses, and the lewd transformation sequences once you take enough damage I have come to expect from the game's Idea Factory Bring West. Now, the basic turn-based combat veers away from the typical free roam system from Neptunia, and it also features aerial combat on 3 different levels or tiers. Enemies and party members can freely swap their area level, and many bosses will have body parts expanding across multiple areas. This gives a lot of strategy, especially for those boss battles. Destroying lower body parts of a boss will not affect their overall HP, but will seal some of their abilities to make the longer battles a bit easier. The game's dragon theme also comes into play with devouring skills and dragon cores. Many enemies you fight are dragons, and using a devour skill on them will extract the core, letting you use points you earn in battle to learn new skills and abilities. Many of these cores are given to you automatically after boss battles, but a pretty large chunk of them can be optionally grabbed from normal and mid-tier enemies in the dungeons. This is a big key to getting a lot of the better buff and debuff skills that will make the late game so much easier to manage. As all of this comes together, we get a lot of different features for a pretty short RPG. My first run through Dragonstar was spent mostly on the main story with getting the true ending and spending just a bit of time building up La Bonnette's affection gauge for her epilogue. With that in mind, I got to the end of the true ending path after playing for almost 16 hours. You can extend this with going for different endings and the post-game dungeon, but it certainly is one of Idea Factory's shorter adventures. Now let's talk presentation, which is similar to what we got in Death and Request. The environments don't look bad, though the 3D models are a little jaggy if they're not really close to the camera. The big problem, though, is performance. Most of the dungeon exploration has a ton of frame drops. Configuration does have a few graphical options we can turn off, but they don't help that much. Some of the dungeons are just poorly optimized and do not run well at all, even in docked mode. Thankfully, this is a turn-based game, but it makes running around enemies in the dungeon maps pretty difficult. I didn't have any other consistent issues, so let's move on to battery life. Dragonstar gives the original model a range of 3 to 4.5 hours, the Nintendo Switch Lite 3.5 to 5, and the V2 or Redbox 2019 model a range of 6 to 8.5. In conclusion, Dragonstar has come to the handheld world in one of Idea Factory's better RPG adventures. Now, while I did think the story was well done and it was a fun, serious RPG to play through, the lower level of English dub scenes and many frame drop and performance issues keep it from being a great RPG for the Switch. If you enjoy Idea Factory's titles, you should look into it because it is pretty good. It's just not optimized that well for the hybrid console. Reviews to go rates Dragonstar Varnir for the Nintendo Switch a 7.5 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching and have a great day.